Okay, we've reached the end of the Stephen King movies and adaptations from the 1990s, so it's time to rank them. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dave Musson, at Dave Musson on Instagram. This is a place where I talk to you about all things Stephen King. And in this video, because as you know if you've been here recently over the last couple of years, I'm going through the movies and adaptations in chronological order. Last time out, we covered The Green Mile, which means we've hit the end of the 1990s. So before we go into the noughts, it's time for me to offer my overall ranking of the 90s adaptations. So I'm going to do that in this video, completely spoiler free, and obviously if you want to check out my 19 reasons to watch any of these, the videos are elsewhere on my channel for you to explore. Now please do let me know your favourites and least favourites from the 90s in the comments. Not necessarily a full ranking, but maybe your top 3 and your bottom 3. I'd be really keen to see those and always love hearing from you guys. Also, don't forget to check out the links in the description to my quiz book, to my fiction, newsletter, all of those kind of things. Subscribe if you haven't already, because that would be really great. And if you are subscribed, thank you, tell a friend. But most of all, thank you for checking out this video. And yeah, let's get into it. We've got 26 adaptations to sort into some sort of order. This is my preference. This is not necessarily a definitive ranking. And I'll give you a couple of reasons as to why I've put things where I have as we go through. But let's start at the bottom and work our way to the best. Here is my ranking of the Stephen King movies and adaptations from the 1990s. Okay, at 26, bringing up the rear, it's Golden Years. Great idea, terrible execution, but still a lot better than A Return to Salem's Lot. At 25, The Mangler. This should have been great. Robert Englund, Toby Hooper directing, a really gross story, and some of the practical effects and the gore are excellent here. But God, it was so boring. One of the most gripping stories in Night Shift, just reduced to this really ploddy, lumbering thing. You've got Ted Levine, the big bad guy from Silence of the Lambs, and even he can't save it. It's just poor acting, poor script choices. Just a poor movie, but better than Golden Years. At 24, the Tommyknockers miniseries. I mean, I feel like somewhere, not only is there an edited version of the book that is really good, but I feel like someone on this earth can make a really good adaptation of the Tommyknockers. This 1993 miniseries is absolutely not that. Jimmy Smits is great, everybody else is pretty terrible. What else is there to say? Not good, way too long. Not worth your time. At 23, while we're talking miniseries that are not good, too long and not worth your time, it's The Langoliers. I mean, it's not a great story in the first place, but this series pretty much straight away gets really ploddy. And I've put it above the Tommyknockers purely because of how hilarious the actual Langoliers are when you get to them. But the rest of it, everyone involved is a bloody idiot.
You bloody idiot.
At 22, Trucks. Let's remake Maximum Overdrive, said no one ever. Until it got remade in the 90s. Again, not good at all, but it sits this high up because it does have quite possibly the most hilarious on-screen death ever. And if you want to know more about that, then check out my 19 reasons to watch it. You will enjoy, honest. At 21, The Lawnmower Man. Now, there's a lot to like about The Lawnmower Man. Yes, it's weird and subjectively not very good, but there is some charm about it. And, you know, it's got a hot cast, it's got some graphics that were pretty cool for its time, and it's an interesting take on King's story. But I think actually the fact that it is tied to King's story hinders it, and we know the story that King had to sue to get his name removed from it and all of that kind of stuff. It would have been stronger as a film that wasn't trying to hook into King. Would have just been stronger as this just weird AI, VR type thing. That could have made it become a cult classic. As it is, it's just another poor King adaptation. But I had fun with it nonetheless. So at 20, Graveyard Shift. Again, absolutely not great. Saved by some excellent gore and one of the weirdest main accents from Warwick I have ever heard in my life. Like, I'm still fascinated as to what that is supposed to be. But there you go. At 19, Quicksilver Highway. Is it this high just because Christopher Lloyd's in it? Pretty much, yeah. Matt Frewer as well. But I really like the Chattery Teeth story, and I think it's a really well executed segment. Obviously it's not an entirely King property, but I still think the Chattery Teeth segment is better than everything below it on this list. Hence it being at the magical 19. 18, Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. Another anthology that features a King story. The Cat from Hell, which I think is really well done. It's fun to watch this because there's lots of big names sort of early on in their career. Christian Slater, Julian Moore, Steve Buscemi. It's great seeing Debbie Harry as a witch. The kid from Mrs. Doubtfire, not the one who's in Matilda, but the son. Yeah, some good stuff in here. It's kind of fun. 3 stories, keeps you entertained. None of them outstay their welcome. I like an anthology. It's got a good wraparound. Yeah, decent. 18. At 17, thinner. Problematic as hell, but kind of enjoyable as well. I think the transformation of Billy Halleck throughout is interesting, and of course having Fat Tony from The Simpsons in there as a gangster is always going to put it above everything else on the bottom of this list, so that's thinner. Okay, it's 16, and I should say from 16 onwards I genuinely have really enjoyed everything from this point onwards. So at 16 it's the Shining miniseries. I mean, part of me wanted to put this higher, but I think objectively everything I've put above it is better. But the Shining miniseries is hugely underrated and underappreciated, and a lot better than many people give it credit for. Take Cortland Mead out of there, the little boy who plays Danny, and it's definitely ranking higher. But some of the scenes in the book that we didn't get in the Kubrick movie are in here. Jack and Wendy are much stronger. I like it a lot. At 15, The Night Flyer. Great monster design, great gore. Miguel Ferrer just giving it his all as the lead. He's the kind of person we should have seen in loads more King adaptations. Love him in this. Love what they did to sort of pad this out to make it up to the 90-minute mark. Yeah, everything about it just works for me. I can't understand why it's not a cult classic. Like an original vampire story with loads of gore. What's not to love? At 14, Needful Things. Yeah, it's too long, but it's still really good. I mean, Max von Sydow as Leland Gaunt, Ed Harris as Alan Pangborn, Bonnie Bedelia as Polly. Like, great cast. Some really terrific scenes. The way it captures Gaunt being able to set the town up against each other, I think, is really effective. Great soundtrack. Nice autumnal vibes. Yeah, I just love it. It's like being in a big sort of cosy October living room in front of the fire type situation watching this one. Like I say, too long, but I'll give it a pass because there's loads of good stuff in here. At 13, Apt Pupil. Super dark, super harrowing, obviously super problematic behind the camera, but I think a really effective adaptation of one of the blackest, bleakest, darkest stories Stephen King has ever read. And I think it captures that atmosphere a lot. And the changes it makes from page to screen don't lessen the impact of it, but are sensible choices. Because some of what we see on the page we wouldn't want to see on the screen. But it gets them across in a way that still keeps the atmosphere of this. And that's really impressive. At 12, Pet Sematary 2. Oh, yes. If you're after some fun, Pet Sematary 2 is your movie. Like, Clancy Brown is incredible in this. We've got Ed Furlong as well from the Terminator 2 film. The Terminator 2 film? From Terminator 2, what am I saying? Anyway, this is great. Just an absolute romp of a campy, silly sequel. Obviously no text to have it based on at all. But just an absolute riot. I love it. And aside from one more sequel that I'm going to mention further up this list, I mean, this is like one of the peak Stephen King sequels. I've had so much fun watching this. In fact, I almost want to go and watch it again. At 11, Sometimes They Come Back. Considering this is a Dino De Laurentiis made-for-TV movie, it has no right being this high up the list, and yet it's really effective. The bullies are great. It's spooky as anything. Gets the story moving and keeps you going. Yeah, I just really, really enjoyed it. It holds up really well. Surprisingly well, in fact. Okay, at number 10, I'm letting my objectivity come in ahead of my subjectivity here, and I'm saying The Stand miniseries. If you're a long-time subscriber to the channel, you know I'm not a huge fan of The Stand, but objectively speaking, this series is great television. And even though it's 4 episodes and it is a lot of time to commit, it is worth it. And it does a good job of turning a book that is okay, in my opinion, into something really, really watchable. Great sprawling cast, some iconic moments, cool soundtrack too. Just, it all works. It all works. At 9, the other sequel I was referencing earlier, is The Rage Carrie 2. Now, I've covered this one very recently, so I don't need to say too much here, but I'm just surprised at how prescient it is in 2024. Surprised and, to be honest, disappointed that the themes in this one are still problems now, but it's really effective. Yet it looks very 90s, it looks very much like a new metal music video, but as I said in my video review of it, I don't mind that, and some of the kills in this are super creative and super fun. Yeah, just had a lot of enjoyment out of this one. And number 8, this might be a hot take, but it's The Shawshank Redemption. Yes, there are 7 films from the 90s I think are comfortably better than Shawshank Redemption. Now don't get me wrong, absolutely I can see why so many people think this is the best movie of all time. I mean, it's not, but I can see why they think that. It's very uplifting, very powerful, wonderful filmmaking, great cast, great production, great acting, so many good things about it. And it's driven by a wonderful, wonderful story, and it breaks your heart, it lifts you up, it pulls you down, it lifts you up again. Yeah, wonderful stuff. But it's number 8 for me, because there are 7 things that I like way more. At 7, well, whatever came after Shawshank was always going to feel a bit weird, wasn't it? So let's jump in. At 7, it's Sleepwalkers. Yes, it's Sleepwalkers. One of the most ridiculous movies ever made. Stephen King writing for screen, teaming up with Mick Garris for the first time, shape-shifting werecats whose enemy is cats. I mean, I could talk about Sleepwalkers for ages. I won't do. Just go and check out my video review of it. But honestly, it's great. It just really is great in a really sort of so bad it's good way. Like, this isn't, it's so bad it's good, and then you realise it's really bad again, and then you actually just think, no, actually this is excellent and it's one of the best films ever. And yeah, Sleepwalkers, number 7. And number 6, I'm going for the It miniseries. Like, Tim Curry's performance as Pennywise, obviously iconic in this, and the kids in this are great as well. As with pretty much every version of It, the book, the miniseries and both of the movies, it's the adults version that kind of drags it down a bit. But still, for network television in the early 90s, this is incredibly scary and incredibly powerful and really well done. And there's a reason that the version of Pennywise from this endures to this day, because just absolutely iconic and fucking terrifying. So yeah, It miniseries, number 6. And number 5, The Dark Half. A really gripping thriller with some great horror scenes. You never quite know what's going on. Timothy Hutton in a dual role, just absolutely smashing it. Castle Rock, autumnal vibes, sparrows are flying again. George A. Romero, like, loads to cheer about this. And yeah, just a really, really well done film that I think has aged really well. There's been talk of a remake. I don't think we need one. Honestly, don't. Yeah, it looks like it's from the 90s, but it still works. Really, really fun movie. At 4, Storm of the Century. Again, I've covered this very recently, so I won't spend too long here talking about it, but I love this miniseries. 3 episodes of incredible television, a novel for TV, one of King's best ever villains, and, conscious of not doing spoilers, but one of his most powerful, bleakest endings ever, from across his entire body of work, on page, on screen, whatever. If you've not checked out Storm of the Century, do yourself a favour and change that. And number 3, Dolores Claiborne. I mean, one of the best dramas that have come out of a Stephen King book to ever be made. Kathy Bates and Jennifer Jason Leigh as the main 2, both sensational, and it's just a thoroughly gripping story. Just like the book. Like, you might go into it thinking, oh, I don't know how much I'm going to get out of this. The book's quite thin, the movie's quite understated, doesn't really do anything to try and smash you in the face and hook you in. But with both, you will be hooked right from the start. And this movie is wonderful. Like, it feels like, having covered it for this channel, it feels like something that's going to find its way into my yearly rotation every autumn, because it's just a great watch, and deservedly in my top 3, at least in my opinion. So 2 left. Which one's going to get the top spot? Well, you can work it out for yourself, because at number 2 on my list is The Green Mile. For a 3-hour movie to be this high up, I think that just shows how well done it is. Again, I've talked about this very, very recently, so I'll keep this brief, but the direction is brilliant, the casting is perfect, the acting is wonderful. It's a very faithful but very well done transition from page to screen. Really powerful story. Great emotion captured here. It just works, and you're never bored, and you could almost do with more at the end of it, which is quite an achievement for such a long film. But yeah, wonderful, wonderful filmmaking, and as I said in my review, the best Stephen King film set in a prison by a long way. So of course that means that my number 1, go right back to 1990, it's Misery. The only Stephen King film to result in an actual Oscar win at the time of recording still, with Kathy Bates of course, the late James Caan, brilliant as Paul Sheldon, Rob Reiner directing and doing wonderfully. I mean, so good, right? Toxic fandom, like wonderful thriller, great scenes. The hobbling scene, just still one of the most sickening things I've ever seen on screen. Just everything about it, from first minute to the last minute, is wonderful. And yeah, it's been top of my list of the 90s stuff right from when I covered it, and nobody has even come close to nudging it off that top spot. So Misery takes the prize for me, and that is the 90s selection of Stephen King adaptations ranked. Okay, there we go. There's my ranking of all of the King movies and adaptations from the 1990s. As I said at the start, but let me know your choices. So I want to know your top 3 and your bottom 3. Pop them in the comments. Let's swap our rankings and preferences. It's always good to have a bit of a chat about that. So we are done with the 90s now. So we can go on to the noughts, and we'll be moving on to Hearts and Atlantis next. But until then, thank you so much for checking this out. Links in the description to my quiz book, newsletter, all those kind of things. You know, the usual. If you're not subscribed already, subscribe. That would be great. If you are subscribed, then tell a friend. Blah, 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 blah. Shall we just wrap this up? Yeah, cool. Thanks for watching. See you soon.